Our body needs large amounts of nutrients in order to function properly and carry out daily activities. These are called macronutrients. The three broad classes of macronutrients are your carbohydrates, your fats, and your protein. Protein is found all throughout our body, our muscles, bones, skin, hair, and every other body part or tissue. It's a critical part of the process that fuels our energy and carries oxygen in our blood. But not all protein sources are created equal. So the question is, how much protein do you actually need? And more importantly, what kind of protein should you consume to make a difference in your health? I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. You're watching MedTalk Health Talk, your connection to healthcare, right here on CNN Philippines. Our bodies need protein not only to grow and repair cells, but pretty much every function in our body to work properly. Our guests are here today to talk about what you need to know about protein and how to shape your diet with healthy protein food sources. Joining us today are Coach Janet Aro. She's a nutritionist, dietitian, and an elite performance nutrition coach. And we're also joined by Dr. Paulo Miguel Borja. He's an internal medicine specialist from the Asian Hospital and Medical Center. Great to have both of you on the show. Now, protein is a complex group of molecules that make up our hair, our nails, our bones and muscles, and many other things. And it gives tissue and organs their shape as well as helps them function well. I'll start first with Dr. Paulo. Apart from all of these, what else does our protein do for our bodies?
So that's correct, Doc Freddy. Proteins are molecules in your body made of combinations of amino acids, and they do have a lot of critical functions for our bodies. Like you mentioned, they provide structure and regulation for our tissue and organs. Example of which are production of antibodies when we're talking about your immune system. They can also be messengers and transporters for specific hormones, and they can also form enzymes for your body's metabolism.
Now, protein is also a source of energy, but it isn't the body's first or even the second choice for getting energy. Carbohydrates and fats maybe fill this role for that. And not consuming enough protein for the day can actually make you easily tired. It takes longer to break down these carbohydrates, providing a long-lasting source of energy. Now, the next question is for Coach Janet. How does the body use protein as an energy source? Dapat malaman ng mga viewers natin to.
Actually, energy provision is one of the least role of proteins in the body. It will be used as a source of glucose if there is an extreme demand for it, such as during low-carb, high-fat diets with high intensity and long duration of exercise.
Now, protein is also essential in building our muscles. And as you lose weight, protein also helps you from losing muscle at the same time. Dr. Paulo, my question is, why is this so? Bakit yung mga gustong mag-lose ng weight, sumasabay din yung muscle wasting kumbaga? What's a good balance? How should they keep their fat low but their protein still at the optimum level?
So the more right protein sources that you have in your body, the better these metabolic functions will be. So if we're talking about specifics, specifically a higher protein intake would usually increase your levels of your satiety or your appetite producer, while reducing your levels of the hunger hormone, ghrelin, at the same time. So with that, you can actually build muscle and lose weight at the same time.
Now, when talking about amino acids, there are some that our body can produce naturally, but there are some that we need to get from our diet. Could you expound on this more, Dr. Paulo?
Well, in general, proteins help form immunoglobulins or antibodies to fight off infections. Antibodies are proteins in your blood that help protect your body from harmful invaders like bacteria and like what we have now, these viruses. When these foreign invaders enter your cells, your body produces antibodies that tag them for elimination. So there are a lot of factors when we're talking about the immune system, and it's really hard to tell which specific type of protein you would need in your body. So for now, we would just recommend that you get the good sources of protein that we will expound on later.
Now, one of the reasons why protein is so popular now is its link in weight loss. So a lot of people talk about that, using protein just to lose weight. Coach Janet, how does protein help with weight loss?
It helps with weight loss by number one, improving your satiety, as mentioned by Doc Paulo. And number two, it helps to preserve lean muscle mass among those who are in a negative calorie balance. So instead of losing muscle together with the fat that you're losing while on a weight loss diet, you get to preserve more lean mass and at the same time maintain your metabolic rate while losing extra body weight.
Now, Dr. Paulo, you mentioned kanina how protein is important for our immunity, but it is also important as well for our body's repair after, let's say, an injury. How does this work naman?
Well, proteins provide the base structure for our tissues and eventually our organs. So aside from their critical function in our immune system, they also activate a signal for a lot of specific hormones and processes for wound repair. Your body needs protein to help build and repair muscle, skin, and other body tissues. Specifically, for example, the amino acid arginine promotes wound healing by increasing collagen deposition and improving both nitric oxide production and nitrogen retention and immune function for your tissues that are injured.
Coach Janet, what are the best sources of protein that our viewers can avail of?
Definitely a balance between animal and plant-based protein sources is of course desirable. Animal proteins such as lean meats, poultry, fish, dairy, and eggs are excellent sources. Now for plant-based sources, soy and soy products are also great options.
The demand for plant-based proteins and meats alternatives is growing. And Coach Janet mentioned that a little bit. Ano? What's your take on plant-based protein sources? Can someone avail of this? Is this just as good a protein source as any other?
When we talk about protein quality, we screen the types of amino acid that is present in the actual protein source. So in terms of getting quality protein from plant-based sources, good options would be soy products kasi it has been found that it levels up or measures up with animal protein sources. It has a complete profile of essential amino acids that is essential for maintaining and activating muscle protein synthesis in the body.
Not getting enough protein in your diet can lead to numerous health issues. So choose well and be well. Stay with us. This is Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Welcome back to Med Talk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we bring you the knowledge and care you need, especially in this time of COVID-19. Now we're talking about proteins in this episode, and protein is found everywhere in the body, which is why protein deficiency has a wide range of symptoms. Too little protein may cause changes in the body composition that may develop over time. Dr. Paulo, what are some of the signs that you don't get enough protein?
When we're talking about protein, like mentioned earlier, it does have a lot of critical functions when it comes to metabolism. So initially, a patient that will start to have some protein deficiencies will present with more or less the generalized symptoms. Weakness, some nausea, some vomiting early on. Also, they might have some confusion. But later on, if this becomes a chronic thing, it could lead to other more morbid protein deficiency conditions.
Okay, so there are many factors really that someone is protein deficient. It can be by choice or they cannot have a choice on it at all, meaning that the types of food that may be present to them may be limited. And protein deficiency can cause a number of problems. You can lose muscle mass, which affects your strength as well as slows down your metabolism. Now, Coach Janet, let's talk about that. Let's talk about metabolism. Could this be an explanation kung bakit a lot of people may be feeling, walang gana, low energy, that sort of thing?
Actually, yes. One of the less evident signs of protein deficiency is weight loss in the context of muscle loss, which can lead to overfatness. So, yung parang nawawala na ng forma yung katawan mo, nawawala ng hubog, parang ang plump na ng itsura mo. Actually, these are signs that you are slowly, bit by bit, losing muscle mass, perhaps because of suboptimal or lower intake of daily protein. No? So, kailangan binabantayan din natin yon para yung metabolism natin, which also manifests in the form of strength, vigor, ganyan, na may maintain pa rin natin on a day-to-day basis.
That's right. So that was about the strength as well as it was talked about how protein also increases your risks of bone fractures. Dr. Paulo, how about the hair and nails? Because we notice those with low protein, their hair and nails are very brittle. What other factors can affect someone who has low protein like this?
Well, definitely someone who has a low protein intake will affect the function of the proteins that actually produce your collagen. So when we're talking about nails and hair, that actually plays a role in it. So not enough protein doesn't give you enough collagen, gives you dry skin, dry nails, and dry hair as well.
Okay. Now, Dr. Paulo, I'd like to go on the extreme end and talk a little bit about what happens when, especially a child, has a malnutrition or a severe deficiency of protein, and that is kwashiorkor, which often occurs, as I mentioned, in children, and it's a form of malnutrition caused by the lack of protein in the diet. Dr. Paulo, what are some of the symptoms of kwashiorkor that our viewers need to know so they can spot this right away?
So kwashiorkor is a form of acute malnutrition that occurs due to protein deficiency. It's a serious condition resulting from inadequate protein intake. So early symptoms will include fatigue, irritability, and lethargy. As protein deprivation continues, one sees growth failure in these children, loss of muscle mass, generalized swelling or edema, and decreased immunity. Symptoms may also include loss of appetite, changes in the color of the hair, which may appear actually yellow or orange, dehydration, like I mentioned, lack of muscle and fat tissues, any frequent skin infections or slow healing wounds, as protein deficiency can actually lead to a low immune system.
That's right. So if any of our viewers find that their children have any of these symptoms that Dr. Paulo mentioned, best to have it checked by your doctor or your pediatrician. Now, protein, as mentioned, is always an essential part of one's diet. However, too much protein naman can also be harmful to your health. Coach Janet, what happens when someone eats too much protein? And when I say too much protein, not just from the diet, but probably from supplements as well. Maybe a lot of people are replacing meals with protein shakes. What can you say about people who eat too much protein?
Actually, the higher or excessive consumption of protein is more common among athletes. For healthy, active individuals, excess protein intake tend to increase its contribution in energy production since our body has no capacity to store excess protein intake.
Okay. How about you, Dr. Paulo? What's your take on that? Replacing a meal with that of a protein shake. Some people do this to lose weight. Some people do this to bulk up. What are some of the risks of having too much protein?
Well, I agree with Coach. No? When we're talking about the intake of protein in your diet, definitely it should just be a complement to a balanced meal, no? That's equal to your carbohydrates and your fats. No? It shouldn't really be mostly purely protein. Protein powders as a replacement for meals can actually cause more problems when we're talking about the medical aspect of it. So it can actually cause problems to your kidneys if it's too much.
Okay. And many of these potential effects depend on the type of protein you're getting and pretty much your overall diet. High protein diets have been linked to numerous health benefits. But how much do you really need? We're your connection to healthcare, and this is Med Talk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Not getting enough protein can lead to health issues, but more isn't necessarily better. If you take too much protein, your body may store the excess as fat, or other organs may be affected as well. Coach Janet, how much protein would you recommend an average person, take daily?
Yeah, for healthy adults, you should consume at least 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight per day. However, for athletes or active individuals, it's highly important to contextualize the amount of protein that you should be consuming. So it depends on the sport, the nature of activity that you do. You may consume from 1.2 grams to 2.2 grams per kilogram body weight per day.
What's a good way or a gauge on the amount of protein a person can take during an average day?
Well, when we're talking about a balanced meal, usually that will still include your carbohydrates and your fats. But if you want to focus on the protein specifically for the functions it may provide for you, if you're looking for a specific goal, for example, muscle building, it's really more of the quality rather than the quantity when you're talking about proteins. So you have to have healthy sources of protein. So while some processed or lunch meats, for example, can be packed with protein or a good source of protein, many are loaded with salt, which can cause high blood pressure and lead to other cardiovascular and renal medical problems. So it really is about the quality of the protein that you're putting in your body.
Dr. Paulo, can you also share with our audience how it is best to consult a doctor, because it may vary depending on any current medical conditions that they have with that?
The 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight of protein per day for regular individuals, that's actually right on point. But you're right, Doc Freddy. We have some viewers here who might have some renal problems and kidney problems. And definitely the kidney cannot process that much protein, and their diet has to be adjusted when we're talking about their protein intake. Also, patients with cardiovascular conditions, so that those are your heart conditions, and also those with other chronic and other serious illnesses, should really consult a doctor so we can actually provide you a prescription on what the correct dosage or correct amount of protein you should be having per day.
Now I'd like to go to Coach Janet. Coach Janet, as an elite athlete coach, let's talk about protein powders, protein supplements with regards to this. Is this beneficial, especially like what you mentioned, if the person is very active, or can this be used as a meal replacement?
Protein powders can be used by athletes if they are not able to get their daily requirements from food. They are generally safe as long as what you're consuming is from a reputable source or reputable brand. No? So you don't just get from anywhere. Make sure na yung pinipili mong protein powder ay malinis, no, walang additional banned ingredients. So as an elite performance nutrition coach, yes, some of my athletes, especially yung mga Tokyo-bound Olympic athletes po natin, some of them are really using whey protein powders primarily for the purposes of minimizing also their fat intake while allowing them to get their daily protein allowances. Lalo na yung mga weight class athletes natin tulad ni Heidi Lin sa boxing team and taekwondo. Lahat po yan gumagamit sila ng protein powders, but of course with my guidance.
So for those who are thinking about taking those supplements, taking those protein powders, do talk to a coach such as Coach Janet or to your doctor such as Dr. Paulo to know the right amount and if this is really the best option for you. Now, before we go, Dr. Paulo, how about those who want to bulk up? For those who, there are some viewers here who feel like kain sila ng kain pero ang payat pa rin nila, they want to bulk up. Is adding protein through either the diet or powder supplements, which would you recommend for people like those?
Well, definitely the natural sources of protein would be better. It's really more of their activities. No? So they could be having a lot of protein intake, but not really having enough exercise to actually convert that function into muscle. Now, when we're talking about protein powders, as Coach Janet mentioned earlier, they are the whey protein specifically is likely safe for most children and adults when taken appropriately. They're actually a convenient source of complement protein. So the key word there is complement. No? It should really not replace the other natural sources of protein that you should have in your body.
So the key to take from this episode is it has to complement each other. With that, we wrap up another interesting conversation today. We hope it was very helpful for you. With that, I'd like to thank our guest, internal medicine specialist, Dr. Paulo Miguel Borja, and nutritionist dietitian, Coach Janet Aro. It was a pleasure having both of you on the show. Now, protein is essential for good health, but it doesn't mean that more is better. When choosing what type of protein to eat, quality is always better than quantity. And not only does it aid in weight loss, but it offers more health benefits from boosting our immune system and giving us energy to aiding in muscle building. We want to be your partner for a lifetime of good health. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. This is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.